Welcome to Science for Sleep, a place where your mind drifts through the mysteries of the universe, and your body prepares to rest. Tonight, we journey deep beneath the Earth's surface, into the slow, powerful silence of supervolcanoes. These aren't ordinary mountains of fire. They are sleeping giants, ancient and immense, holding the memory of eruptions that once darkened skies and changed the course of life. But tonight, there is no fear, only wonder. You are safe here, calm, cradled by quiet facts and dreamy metaphors. So lay back, close your eyes if you wish. Let the rhythm of your breath match the deep rhythm of the earth. And together, we'll explore the heart of the planet, where time stretches long and silence holds great power. Asterisk. Chapter 1. Beneath your feet, a breathless giant. You lie in the dark, wrapped in warmth, your breath steady, your body still. Above you, the stars will silently across the sky. But beneath you, deep below the floor of your quiet room, the earth moves. Not fast, not loud, not with urgency, but always. The ground you rest on is not solid in the way it seems. It is a floating skin, a shell barely cooled from the fire of long ago. You imagine the crust of the earth like a cracked surface of ancient clay, drifting on seas of molten thought. Below that crust, deeper than you have ever gone, lies something vast and quiet, something sleeping. You are resting above a breathless giant. It does not breathe the way you do, but it moves and waits and dreams. It holds memories older than air, older than bones, older than stars in our night sky. This giant stirs in magma and silence, wrapped in chambers of heat and pressure where stone flows like water and time forgets to tick. You are safe where you are, but the story calls you to listen, to notice, to drift downward. Slowly, like a leaf falling through layers of sleep, through soil and stone, through the veins of ancient water, fossils curled in the dark like sleeping animals, past the places where roots end and the pressure begins. The deeper you fall, the slower things move. Heat rises here, but it is not the fire of flame. It is the warm breath of Earth's core, radiating through layers of rock, like a heartbeat felt through thick blankets. It moves in convection currents, slow spirals of molten rock, invisible to the eye, but shaping the surface far above. This is where the breathless giant lives. In science, we call this the mantle, but names don't hold the weight of feeling. The mantle is not a place you can see, but it touches everything you know. It is where continents are nudged like puzzle pieces, and where oceans open like long, patient sighs. And deeper still, there are pockets of pressure, heat, and potential. Caverns where molten rock gathers, thick and slow, forming chambers too vast to imagine. Reservoirs of silence and tension. These are the places where supervolcanoes are born, not in thunder, but in waiting, not in fire, but in stillness. They take hundreds of thousands of years to form, building their breath in quiet chambers. The crust above them thins, swells, changes shape without warning. But often, it gives no sign at all. You picture it now, a massive chamber beneath your body, miles wide, filled with viscous molten rock glowing in soft red-orange light. Above it, forests, cities, mountains, sleepers like you, all resting on what appears to be earth, but is, in truth, only the surface of something dreaming. and the giant dreams slowly. Its breath is pressure. Its dreams are shifts in temperature, in mineral composition, in the slow seep of gases that whisper upward. When the pressure grows beyond what the earth can hold, a moment may come when the breath becomes a roar. But that moment is not now. Tonight, the giant sleeps. You return to your own body, remembering how small you are on this great breathing world. But small does not mean separate. You are part of this story, a soft, thoughtful observer on the crust of a planet that holds fire in its belly. The heat that once forged mountains now waits beneath you, not in anger, not in chaos, but in slow, powerful patience. The giant is not a monster. It is Earth itself, your Earth. Every footstep you have ever taken rests on the cooled skin of an old flame. Every home ever built sits above unseen forces, but you do not need to fear them. Tonight, you simply float above them, noticing, understanding, remembering that the world is not still even when it feels like it. And this stillness, too, is part of the rhythm. So as you lie there, wrapped in the hush of night, you might picture the land beneath your town or forest or ocean. You might imagine the crust flexing slightly, gently, under unseen strain. You might hear a deep and ancient exhale, not of breath, but of heat, not of sound, but of motion. You drift now, not downward, but inward, into the memory of Earth, into the places where mountains were first imagined and valleys carved in thought. You do not need to rush. Time here moves differently, in centuries, in cycles, in the pause between eruptions. Tonight, you are not afraid of what sleeps. You are curious, and curiosity is a kind of light. So you follow it, letting it guide you deeper into understanding. Not all giants wake in anger. Some simply rise with purpose, with pressure, with silence broken only by slow, deliberate change. And so you fall asleep atop the breath of something vast. The breathless giant dreams below, and you dream above. But what, you wonder, makes some volcanoes different from others? What, exactly, makes a volcano super? Chapter 2. What makes a volcano super? You are still, and so is the earth above you. But beneath it, something stirs slowly, not with violence, but with intention. A movement that takes centuries. A pressure you cannot feel unless you listen with more than your ears. Tonight, you drift deeper. Volcanoes are not just mountains that burn. Some of them barely look like mountains at all. Their power is not in how high they rise, but in how far they reach. These are not peaks. They are basins, massive hollows formed not by growth, but by collapse. They are called supervolcanoes. You close your eyes, and instead of fire, you feel silence. Not empty silence, but the kind that holds weight. The kind you might feel in a cathedral or standing at the edge of the sea. What makes a volcano super? It's not anger. It's not chaos. It's scale. It's breath. A supervolcano is not louder than the others. It is deeper, more patient, more enduring. It stores energy for hundreds of thousands of years, slowly gathering molten memory in vast underground chambers, stretching wider than cities, sometimes wider than entire nations. The magma reservoir beneath a supervolcano is like an underground ocean. It does not bubble on the surface. It hums far below, building pressure with each passing century. Imagine trying to hold your breath for 1,000,000 years. The Earth does. Regular volcanoes erupt often. They exhale in smaller bursts, releasing pressure in plumes and lava rivers. But a supervolcano holds it all in. It waits. It presses inward. It grows. Until one day, the crust can no longer contain what has been patiently stored. You imagine the surface of the earth as a thin skin stretched over something alive. Something breathing, something warm. Beneath that skin, molten rock moves slowly, like honey, shifting through fractures and chambers, heating and reshaping the layers of time. The term scientists use is VI, the Volcanic Explosivity Index. It is a scale, much like the Richter scale for earthquakes. Most eruptions fall below a 5. Mount St. Helens in 1980 was a 5. Krakatoa in 1883 reached 6. But a supervolcano begins at 8. An eruption at this scale could release more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of material, enough to bury entire landscapes in ash, enough to shade the sun. But it is not destruction we focus on tonight. It is potential, the quiet buildup, the long sleep. The caldera is the footprint left behind, a vast sunken plain where the earth once rose, then fell inward after the pressure was finally released. You may not recognize it at first. It may look like a meadow, a valley, even a lake. But if you walk far enough and look closely, you begin to see the outline of something immense. Take Yellowstone, for example. Not a single volcano, but an ancient scar. A supervolcano that erupted violently more than 600,000 years ago, and now sleeps beneath forests and bison and geysers. It doesn't look angry. It looks peaceful, but that peace is the pause between heartbeats. And it's not alone. There are others. Lake Toba in Indonesia, Taupo in New Zealand, the Long Valley Caldera in California. These places do not rise with sharp peaks. They do not smoke daily or spill lava from cones. Instead, they sprawl. Wide, flat, deceptive, like a hell breath. You begin to understand that a supervolcano isn't a feature of the surface. It's a structure of the deep. It's not what you see that matters. It's what lies underneath. How do they form? You might imagine the Earth's crust as a jigsaw of plates, floating atop a slowly churning mantle. In some places, hot spots rise like gentle fountains, heating the crust from below over long periods of time. In other places, tectonic plates collide or drift apart, creating spaces where molten rock can collect. Over thousands of years, that molten rock doesn't always rise to erupt. Sometimes it gathers, spreads, thickens, forming chambers tens of kilometers across. These magma chambers may swell slowly, lifting the ground above them. Trees tilt, roads crack, but still, the giant waits. There is a balance. Pressure from below, weight from above. So long as the crust holds, the energy remains within. But should the crust fracture wide enough, or the pressure grow too great, the system may fail. And when it does, the entire chamber can empty in a single, overwhelming event. Ash would rise, air would chill, but even in this, there is beauty. For ash is made of fine particles of volcanic glass and crystal, born from melted rock and ancient minerals. It floats, reflecting sunlight, painting skies in hues of silver and gold. In your mind, you see not disaster, but transformation. The earth reshaping itself, slowly, painfully, and then resting again. For supervolcanoes do not roar often. They may only erupt once in a million years. and then sleep again. The science, like the volcano itself, moves slowly. Geologists study the signs: ground uplift, gas emissions, seismic tremors. But these are just hints, clues whispered in the language of time. Even now, we know only fragments. We listen to the earth, and it speaks back in riddles. Tonight, you have touched the edge of something vast. You have felt the quiet weight of possibility. And as you return to stillness, you realize the earth is not in conflict with us. It moves to its own rhythm, ancient and slow, like breath. And somewhere, beneath the crust, a gentle warmth continues to rise. What does this place look like beneath the surface? What shape does that sleeping hearth take? In the next chapter, we drift to Yellowstone, to the heart of the caldera, where steam rises and the earth murmurs softly in its dreams. Chapter 3, Yellowstone, the sleeping hearth. You find yourself standing in silence as morning fog rolls over the grassy edge of Yellowstone. The air smells faintly of minerals, warm and damp, like the breath of something ancient and unseen. Geysers hiss in the distance, quiet and steady like a sleeping creature exhaling. Beneath your feet, the earth holds its breath. This land is not just a park or a place to visit. It is a window, a wound, a warm reminder of forces too vast to measure in human time. What you see here, the steaming springs, the bubbling mud pots, the vibrant rainbow pools, are only surface whispers. Below, far below, lies a reservoir of molten memory, the Yellowstone supervolcano. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, but because it feels right. Everything here seems to move at the pace of deep time. Trees rise from ancient ash. Rivers trace paths carved by eruptions long forgotten. And yet, this place is not just about the past. It's also about what sleeps. Beneath the crust of Yellowstone is a magma chamber stretching like an underground ocean of heat. It is wide, not tall. Calm, not empty. This chamber, like a slow heart, pulses gently with energy, with warmth, with potential. Scientists believe it could be one of the most powerful reservoirs of magma on the planet. It is this quiet potential that gives Yellowstone its name in the world of supervolcanoes. But what is a supervolcano? You imagine a mountain with smoke and lava. But Yellowstone is no mountain. There is no cone, no towering peak. The caldera, the crater left behind by an ancient eruption, is so large that it can only be seen from the sky. 45 miles across, it cradles valleys, lakes, and forests. A whole ecosystem lives within this quiet scar. You pause at a place where the earth exhales sulfur and steam. This breath is not violent, not yet, but it is constant. A reminder, the last time Yellowstone erupted was over 640,000 years ago. Before that, nearly 1.3 million years ago. And before that, 2.1 million years. There is no countdown clock, only patterns traced in rock and ash. When it did erupt, it changed everything. Not just here, across continents. Ash fell thousands of miles away. Skies darkened. Temperatures dropped. It was a moment of planetary breathlessness. And then, over time, life returned. As it always does. Today, you are safe. The sun climbs slowly, and the steam glows like golden mist. Bison graze lazily. Birds float through the air, and the earth continues its soft conversation through geysers and hot springs. But deep below, there is still heat, still magma, still the quiet possibility of waking. You sit on a bench and close your eyes. Try to feel what lies miles beneath, not in fear, but in wonder. It is not easy to hold something so immense in your mind, but you don't need to understand all the details. It is enough to imagine the Earth breathing through time. Scientists monitor Yellowstone closely. They measure the ground as it swells and falls, like the rise and fall of a deep, slow breath. They listen to tremors, count micro-earthquakes, analyze the chemistry of gases. It is not to predict, but to understand, to witness, to stay close to the pulse. You wonder what it would be like to see the Earth wake up, to watch something so slow become sudden. But then you let that thought float away like mist on the wind. Tonight is not for fear. It is for awe, for connection, for being small under a sky that remembers. You walk again, slowly, through the basin. A geyser erupts in the distance, not violently, but like a sigh. Water arcs into the air, steams, and vanishes. Everything here moves from heat to air to light. It is the same journey your thoughts are on, rising, dissolving. And so you learn this. Yellowstone is not waiting to destroy. It is waiting to be understood. It holds its story in layers of rock, in chemical signatures, in old flows and deposits. Every bubble, every puff of steam, is a line of poetry written by the planet itself. And now, as the sky darkens and stars begin to prick the heavens, you lie back on the grass. Somewhere beneath you, a molten sea stirs gently in its sleep. It may stay silent for thousands more years. It may never rise again, but it is there, part of the planet's breath, part of its memory. The caldera beneath you is not a threat tonight. It is a cradle, a warm hollow in the earth that tells you stories in steam and silence. You begin to feel what it means to live on a breathing planet. You begin to hear how quiet can hold more power than noise. And as your eyes drift closed, a final thought bubbles gently upward. If this is just one place, one sleeping hearth, how many other chambers lie below, waiting, silent and unseen? In the layers beneath our world, how does the Earth store power in silence? Chapter 4. How Earth stores power in silence. You lie still now, breath soft, heart slow. Somewhere below you, the planet breathes too, so slowly you could mistake it for silence. But there is something alive under the crust, something old and patient. Beneath your feet, far deeper than the roots of any tree, the Earth stores warmth. Not just warmth, potential. You begin to float downward in your mind, slipping through soil and stone like mist, into the places where time pools like lava. Imagine this, a vast cavern filled not with air, but with molten rock. It doesn't boil or bubble, not yet. It moves like thick honey in slow motion, flowing inch by inch over centuries. This is a magma chamber. Not a volcano, not yet, but the deep sleep of one. You drift through it as if through a dream. The heat doesn't burn. It wraps around you like a memory, old and glowing. The magma here is made of melted minerals, silicon, oxygen, aluminum, iron. The very bones of the planet, turned fluid by pressure and heat. You float past crystals suspended in the melt, like stars in liquid sky. Some of these crystals have been growing for thousands of years, slowly arranging themselves atom by atom, waiting for the chamber to change. And it does change, but never quickly. You feel it in your body now, the immense patience of geology. A chamber may take 1,000,000 years to fill, 1,000,000 years to prepare, and all the while, the earth above it barely notices. It just goes on spinning, letting time pile up like snow on a quiet plain. But pressure is a quiet storyteller. It speaks in shifts and strains, in tiny fractures and rising gas. Gases like carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide bubble up slowly through the molten rock, searching for a way out. You watch them form ghostly trails, curling like sleep breath toward cracks in the surrounding rock. The magma wants to expand, but the crust holds firm. For now, you notice how everything here is a balancing act. Pressure pushing out, rock pushing back. Heat rising, minerals settling. The magma thickens over time, cooling at the edges, becoming stickier, more viscous. Like a thought that can't quite escape, held in place by layers of resistance. And yet energy builds. Not quickly, not loudly, but inevitably. Every drop of new magma added from below adds to the story, adds to the tension, like adding words to a sentence that never ends. The earth holds this sentence in its mouth, unfinished, waiting for the moment when silence breaks into voice. But the earth doesn't rush. You drift through layers of rock that have held back eruptions for hundreds of thousands of years. Some have bulged and cracked under pressure, but still remained intact. Others have given way before, long ago, leaving behind scars you now float past, cooled dikes and ancient vents, evidence of past awakenings. Still, most of the time, the earth simply waits. In your body, too, there are stores of energy, moments not yet released, words not yet spoken. You understand now that power doesn't always look like motion. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes the deepest strength is the one that doesn't need to be seen. The silence of a magma chamber is not empty. It is full of potential, like a held breath before a leap, like the dark pause before dawn. In some places, sensors placed by humans measure the swell of the ground above these chambers. Tiny changes, the earth rising by millimeters, like a blanket lifting as something beneath shifts. Seismometers pick up the smallest whispers of movement. But the volcano does not speak clearly. It hums in a language of heat and resistance. You imagine a heart again, not yours, but the Earth's, beating slowly, storing warmth, waiting, not because it must erupt, but because pressure eventually finds a path. And so, chambers fill, layers settle, the planet turns. You realize the Earth is not cruel. It's just vast. It has its rhythms, some as quick as a thunderclap, others as slow as a mountain's breath. You are part of those rhythms, whether you hear them or not. As you drift upward now, rising gently from the glowing chamber below, you carry this knowing with you, that strength can sleep. That quiet is not weakness. That power, when stored in patience, becomes something deeper, something sacred. The air cools as you ascend. The magma fades from view. But the feeling lingers, that beneath everything, the world holds more than we ever see. Above you lies Yellowstone, a caldera shaped not by fire alone, but by the pressure that came before. A hearth above a heart, a place where the land once cracked open and may again. But not yet, not tonight. Tonight, you lie between the breath of earth and the breath of sky. And somewhere just ahead, in the silence that follows, you'll visit a place where sky once turned dark with ash, and memory rose in smoke. Chapter 5. When the sky turned dark. The night is quiet around you, and so is the earth, for now. You lie still, sinking into the softness of your bed, but your mind begins to drift, past the surface, past the crust, past the warmth of human memory. It drifts backward, thousands upon thousands of years, to a time when the earth exhaled. You arrive in the shadow of what was once a mountain, though now it is a vast bowl of silence. Toba, Indonesia, roughly 74,000 years ago. Here, the earth released a breath so deep it darkened the sky for years. The Toba supereruption. You are not here to fear it. You are here to float through it. To witness what happens when the earth, in its slow, patient way, reminds life of its fragility. The world before the eruption is lush, slow-moving, full of early human footsteps and the rustle of ancient trees. There are no cities, no clocks, just small communities, scattered and quiet, living with the land. You can almost feel the rhythm of their days, beating gently like a drum made from earth and skin. But deep below the soil, pressure has been building for hundreds of thousands of years. A magma chamber, the size of 100 cities, is swelling, pressing, dreaming of release. And then it comes. The ground splits. A thunderous roar, too large for sound, echoes through stone. Fire and ash burst upward, not in a single breath, but in a torrent that lasts for days. You float upward with it, through the column of light and dust, into the stratosphere, where ash becomes sky and sky becomes shadow. Toba releases nearly 3,000 cubic kilometers of material into the air, enough to bury entire continents under a blanket of dust. The sun is hidden, not just for hours, not just for days, for months, possibly for years. The world goes dim. Crops fail. Temperatures drop by several degrees. It is not ice, exactly. It is something colder. A hush across the earth. You imagine early humans looking up, confused by the muted sky. The stars blurred, the moon pale and strange. They don't have words for supervolcano or stratospheric sulfur, but they know something ancient has shifted. And you, floating softly above them in your imagination, understand what science would later uncover. The Toba eruption may have caused a genetic bottleneck in humanity, a narrowing of the population so extreme that it nearly erased us. Some say fewer than 10,000 humans remained. Some say even fewer. Still, life held on, and that is the miracle. Amidst ash and famine, humans found warmth. In caves, by fire, beneath stars they could barely see. They shared food. They waited. They whispered stories. And slowly, as the skies began to clear, they emerged again. You drift through these moments as if through smoke, feeling the weight and wonder of it all, the power of the earth, the softness of human endurance. The science of it is poetic in its own way. Ash particles, carried high into the atmosphere, reflect sunlight back into space. Sulfur dioxide transforms into sulfate aerosols, forming a veil around the planet. A global winter. Temperatures fall. Rain patterns shift. Ecosystems tremble. And yet, the Earth continues to turn. You feel that turning now, like a gentle rotation under your spine. Even in darkness, the planet moves in rhythm. Even in silence, there is breath. Toba, like all supervolcanoes, did not explode with fury. It exhaled, slowly, thoroughly, destructively. It shaped lakes, continents, skies. It became a memory stored in stone and ice cores and the DNA of those who survived. And we carry that memory in our blood, in our stories, in our science. Tonight, you are part of that remembering, part of that continuity. Your body made from elements forged in Earth's fire. Your breath, calm and slow, synced with the long breath of the planet. The sky turned dark, but it did not stay dark forever. Eventually, the ash settled. The sun returned. Greenery crept across the land once more. Birds sang. Waters warmed. Life, persistent and soft, rose again. And so did we. Now, you drift deeper into thought, wondering how the world stores that memory, how ash settles into layers, how trees ring with seasons, how ice holds the trace of sulfur and time, how science reads these silent stories and understands. You feel small, but not insignificant, fragile, but not powerless, just aware that the earth is vast and we are a part of it. And beneath that awareness, a question begins to stir. If this could happen once, it could happen again. Not with fear, but with a quiet curiosity. How does the earth hold so much pressure and weight? And if it stirs again, can we know? Can we listen closely enough to hear it breathing? You begin to wonder how we might read the signs, and slowly, gently, you float toward the next question. Chapter 6, The Science of Ash and Atmosphere. You lie beneath the blanket, still and breathing slow, as the night air cools around you. Your body settles, but your mind lifts, tracing unseen currents above the earth. Somewhere, long ago, the ground cracked open, and ash poured upward like a memory released. Not a roar, not a scream, just a slow, exhaling plume. It rose with intention, but no urgency. And tonight, you follow it. You drift upward with the ash. It's not the heavy, sooty kind that settles on window panes and rooftops. This ash is fine, invisible from the ground, more like dust caught in sunlight. It travels high, higher than birds fly, higher than storms gather. You follow it into the stratosphere, where weather forgets to go and silence holds its breath. Ash, you realize, is not just burned earth. It is crushed rock, minerals shattered by force, molecules rearranged in the heat of eruption. It carries the chemical signature of the land it came from: calcium, silica, iron, sulfur. Each flake, though impossibly small, is a messenger. It tells the sky where it has been. When a supervolcano erupts, the ash doesn't simply fall. It climbs. The force of the blast punches past the troposphere, through the lowest layers of atmosphere, into a region where winds circle the earth like slow rivers. Here, the ash drifts sideways, not down. It floats for weeks, even months, catching sunlight and throwing shadows. You imagine this, a soft veil draped over the world. The sun tries to shine, but the light scatters differently now. It filters through suspended crystals and particles. Days become dimmer. Skies take on a pale, washed-out hue. Sunsets bloom in unfamiliar reds and violets. And somewhere far away, where the volcano never touched the ground, crops struggle in shortened growing seasons. This is the science of ash and atmosphere. It is not loud, and it is not quick. It is slow science, measured not in minutes, but in seasons, and years. You float beside these particles and feel time stretch. You learn how aerosols, tiny droplets formed from sulfur dioxide released in the blast, mix with water in the upper air. They reflect sunlight. Not block, not erase, just reflect. A mirror to the sun. A cooling breath. This is called volcanic winter. Not a frozen silence, but a subtle shift. The Earth cools by a few degrees, but ecosystems feel it deeply. Less heat means shorter seasons. Rain patterns change. Ocean currents adjust their rhythms. You realize how delicately tuned the planet is, how a few particles of ash, thousands of miles above, can tilt the balance of everything below. It has happened before. You see it now, unfolding in the slow rewind of memory. Mount Tambora, 1815. A massive eruption in Indonesia. The next year, across the world, became known as the year without a summer. In Europe and North America, snow fell in June. Crops failed. Famine spread. The eruption whispered its presence not through lava or fire, but through empty harvests and cold dawns. And yet, in that shadow, humanity imagined. Mary Shelley, huddled indoors against the unseasonable chill, began to write Frankenstein. Art rose from ash. The world, altered, found new stories to tell. You drift further through this quiet cloud. You learn how satellites now track ash clouds, watching their motion in slow curls. You see how scientists model the cooling effects, comparing temperatures before and after eruptions. You understand that not all eruptions reach the stratosphere, but when they do, the effects are global. And you wonder, how does the Earth remember these changes? Ice cores in Antarctica hold the answers. Trapped air bubbles preserve the chemistry of ancient skies. Ash layers, thin as threads, mark eruptions from thousands of years ago. A frozen archive of fire. The ash eventually falls. Gravity never forgets. But even as it descends, it leaves something behind. Climate memories. Atmospheric echoes. You breathe gently now, aware that every inhale carries the history of volcanoes past. Somewhere in the air tonight, a molecule touched by fire still drifts. And when the ash settles, it nourishes. The same minerals that cooled the sun now feed the soil. Forests regrow on lava fields. Life, as always, follows loss. This is the final gift of ash, rebirth. Your thoughts drift downward, with the particles, toward the earth again. You feel how connected the sky is to the ground. How what rises in fire can return as nourishment, and how, in silence, the planet reshapes itself. But deep below, the source of that ash still breathes. A quiet reservoir of molten thought, waiting. And now you wonder, can we hear it in time? Can we learn to listen before it speaks again? Chapter 7. Can we predict a supervolcano? It begins with a silence that isn't truly silent. Deep below the surface, far beneath your feet, the planet stirs quietly. There is no roar, no tremor you can feel. But somewhere, in the heart of a volcano's sleeping chamber, the earth sighs. You lie in bed, still and warm, your chest rising and falling in a rhythm you don't have to think about. In a way, the planet breathes too. Its tectonic plates shift, just a little. Its magma moves, softly and unseen. And the scientists who watch these hidden motions listen like physicians with a stethoscope pressed to a sleeping patient's chest. They listen for murmurs. Not words, not screams, just patterns. The instruments are delicate. A seismograph, for instance, doesn't just record an earthquake. It listens to the vibrations that pulse through rock like sound through a cello string. Every movement tells a story if you know how to hear it. Somewhere near Yellowstone or Campiflagrii, these instruments tick quietly in underground labs or weather-worn boxes placed in fields. They are the Earth's dream catchers, recording data with patience and faith. A spike in seismic activity might mean magma is rising, or it might mean nothing at all. And yet, the patterns matter. There is another watcher, the GPS network. Not the kind you use to find a coffee shop, but the kind that notices when the ground itself moves by just a few millimeters. Over days, weeks, years. A slow bulge in the land might suggest pressure building below, a kind of inhale beneath the soil. Stillness, then swelling, then stillness again. Gas sensors pick up whispers too. Carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide rise from cracks in the rock. Their quantities shift subtly, a new chemical tone in the air. Imagine a sleeping creature exhaling slightly more with each breath. You might wonder, is it dreaming or waking? These are the signs we read. These are the signals we follow. But nothing is guaranteed. The Earth does not send clear messages. It speaks in metaphor. One volcano may tremble and huff for centuries without erupting. Another may explode with barely a warning. This is not because we lack intelligence. It is because the Earth's systems are vast, complex, and beautifully chaotic. You begin to see it more clearly now. Prediction is not prophecy. It is pattern. It is possibility. It is music heard faintly in the next room. And so the scientists wait. They simulate eruptions in glowing rooms filled with supercomputers. They recreate ancient events, modeling ash fall and wind currents and global cooling. They test evacuation timelines, monitor public awareness, build maps of danger zones. And yet they know, knowing more doesn't always mean knowing when. You may wonder, if a supervolcano is so massive, so devastating, wouldn't it show more signs before it erupts? Sometimes it does. But sometimes, like a single heartbeat skipped in sleep, the moment comes quietly. Even the largest eruptions in history, like Toba and Taupo, likely gave warning. But how many were watching then? Now, we have eyes and ears on these places. But even with our instruments, the future remains a soft blur. Think of it like weather forecasting. A storm gathers, and we see the clouds. But we do not always know if the winds will turn, if the lightning will strike. And yet, we still prepare. Because preparation is not fear. It is care. It is attention. You are not meant to worry. You are meant to understand. As you breathe deeply now, picture the scientists in quiet rooms, poring over lines of data like monks reading sacred texts. They know the Earth speaks in slow verses, and they are translating it bit by bit. The goal is not to stop the Earth. We cannot. The goal is to live with its rhythms, to harmonize with the deep movements of the crust. Like learning to sleep beside a powerful river, not fearing its roar, but trusting its path. And so, prediction becomes not just about warning, but about wonder. We watch the ground because we love what stands upon it. Cities, forests, stories. And in that love, we try to listen better. As your eyelids grow heavier, imagine the magma chambers below, vast reservoirs of heat and memory. Some are quiet now. Some may stir tomorrow. But always, they are part of you, part of this earth you rest upon. The science of prediction is not perfect, but it is beautiful. It is quiet. It is a language still being learned. And perhaps, as you drift off, you too can learn to hear what lies below, not with fear, but with a kind of peaceful awe, because deep in the heart of the earth, something waits. And just above it, life listens. But what kind of life dares to bloom in such places? Who survives at the very edge of fire? Chapter 8. Life at the Edge of Fire. You are standing at the rim of a world that breathes fire. Steam rises like breath from the mouth of the earth, soft and white against the pale morning sky. Beneath your feet, the crust is thin, and the warmth travels upward, whispering of the molten heart below. This is not a place of comfort, yet life lingers here. It shouldn't, you think, and yet it does. A bison moves through the mist, its shaggy frame like a shadow made solid, slow and calm. Around it, the ground steams. Pools of water hiss and bubble, rich with acid, heavy with heat. The air smells faintly of sulfur and something ancient, like memory. And still, in this unlikely place, life persists. Here, at the edges of Yellowstone, life exists not despite the danger, but because of it. You kneel near a small stream, barely the width of your hand, and watch the strange orange threads curling through it. They shimmer, almost glowing. These are thermophiles, heat lovers. Microbes so tiny you cannot see them individually, but together, they color the water like watercolor paint spread across stone. Their world is the boil, the scald, the chemical soak. To most life, this place is poison. But for them, it is perfect. And not only microbes. Nearby, a pine tree stands, twisted but alive. Its roots stretch toward warmth, carefully avoiding pockets of scalding soil. Trees grow here with a quiet stubbornness, adjusting their chemistry, tolerating ash, surviving in the shade of ancient scars. They don't fight the volcano, they move with it. You wander through a forest shaped by eruption. Some trunks are bent, others charred black by old fires, now cold. Saplings grow beside them. There is a rhythm here, eruption, pause, growth. Destruction is not the end. It is just one part of the breath. Insects hum, birds call. You hear the low croak of a raven overhead, wings cutting through sulfur-sweet air. These creatures are more than survivors. They are students of instability. Each one carries a memory, not of language, but of adaptation. Volcanic soil, for all its heat and violence, is rich. When cooled and broken by rain and time, it becomes fertile. Seeds sleep in ash, and when the earth stills, they wake. Wildflowers bloom in color against gray rock. There is beauty here, not just in spite of the fire, but because of it. You move slower now, feeling the warmth rising through your soles, a subtle reminder of the depth below. There is something deeply humbling about life that thrives at the edge of danger. It makes you wonder about yourself, your own ability to grow in uncertainty, to live on edges. And you remember, extremophiles don't just live here. They flourish in the boiling vents of ocean floors, in the freezing winds of Antarctica, in caves without light or oxygen. Life does not wait for perfect conditions. It simply finds a way. You close your eyes and imagine the first spark of life on Earth. Was it in a warm, safe pool? Or was it here, in heat, in pressure and fire? Scientists now believe that volcanic environments, rich in minerals and thermal energy, may have been the very cradle of biology. That perhaps we are all, in a way, born from the edge. A butterfly lands on your sleeve. Its wings are soft orange, like the microbial mats in the stream. A fragile thing in a fierce place. You marvel at the contradiction. But maybe it isn't a contradiction at all. Maybe vulnerability and resilience are not opposites. Maybe they are twins. You step toward a geyser field where bursts of steam rise in rhythm, like the heartbeat of the earth. The air is thick with mist, and you can barely see a few steps ahead. Yet life moves around you. The ground, though scorched, hums with quiet purpose. You pass a rock shelf where lichen grows in delicate patches. It clings to stone, feeding on light, wind, and minerals. It asks for almost nothing, and gives oxygen in return. The simplicity of life here is disarming. It makes you feel small, and yet somehow expanded. You are part of this, a creature of a world that burns and renews. You, too, are a system that learns to adapt, to bloom in difficulty. As you sit on a warm boulder, letting the heat ease into your muscles, you reflect on how much beauty there is in resilience. Not the dramatic, heroic kind, but the quiet, patient strength that roots itself in ash and waits for light. Above, clouds drift. Below, the magma flows in silence. And between them, a narrow line where life continues. Even in the presence of destruction, there is a kind of peace, a steadiness, a reminder that nothing stays broken forever. You close your eyes. You feel your breath slowing, sinking with the pulses beneath the ground. And as you sink into stillness, one thought begins to rise. If life can flourish here, what might it mean when the earth shifts again? And what stories will the sky begin to tell? Chapter 9. Humanity and the Next Awakening. Beneath your feet, somewhere far below the crust of your quiet town or city or forest trail, the earth turns slowly in its sleep. You can't feel it, not with your skin or your fingers, but it hums in the background of everything. A soft pressure, a warmth that never fades. The breath of a planet that dreams in magma. You lie still, your body relaxed, your thoughts just beginning to soften. But one question gently rises like mist from the base of your spine. What if it wakes again? Not tomorrow, not in your lifetime, perhaps not in 1,000 lifetimes. But the giant, the supervolcano, has stirred before. It may stir again. And you wonder, how do we prepare for something that sleeps for so long and yet could change everything in a single breath? The answer begins not with panic, but with planning. Quiet, patient, human planning. Emergency scientists, geologists, atmospheric researchers, they sit in rooms lit by soft computer glow, watching the earth for signals. They build simulations, not to predict the exact moment of awakening, but to understand the waves it could send through time and space if it did. You imagine one such room. A screen glows with an overhead view of Yellowstone. Subtle lines map tectonic movements. Satellite blips measure heat. On another screen, gas emissions rise in a slow, ghostly curl. Nothing is dramatic, but everything is data, a quiet language the earth speaks. You walk through this imagined space, not with fear, but with fascination. Humans are listeners now, quiet, alert, respectful. And what would happen if that voice grew louder? If the earth exhaled, suddenly and with force? The scenarios play out slowly, like dominoes spaced across continents. First, the caldera swells. Trees tilt. Roads crack. Steam vents hiss. Officials evacuate nearby towns. Supplies are moved, not with rush, but with intention. Planes reroute. Ash maps spread like watercolor across weather charts. Then the eruption. A bloom of ash, rising taller than Everest. The sun dims. Across oceans, skies blush gray. Crops struggle beneath filtered light. Shipping routes pause. Shelves thin. But humans adapt. We always do. You picture communities gathering by candlelight. Blankets shared. Radios humming with soft voices offering updates. You picture masks worn not for illness, but for ash. Water filtered. Food rationed. Not because the world has ended, but because we are making room for it to begin again. Preparation is not a shield. It is a gesture of care. Scientists have modeled these outcomes not to scare you, but to give you time. Time to know. Time to respond. And in those responses, backups, shelters, knowledge networks, you see a quieter kind of strength. Humans are small. We do not stop the earth, but we listen. We build systems that bend with its breath. Satellite constellations now orbit the planet, watching for ground deformation with more accuracy than ever. Artificial intelligence scans seismic data for patterns too subtle for the human eye. You imagine your body, lying still, being mapped just as gently by a watchful intelligence. Not controlling, not interfering, just listening, preparing. Children in schools learn about magma chambers and plate tectonics. They model volcanoes with baking soda and vinegar, laughing, unaware that their curiosity is the seed of tomorrow's resilience. In that curiosity, you find comfort. Wonder is a kind of armor too. And far from Yellowstone, in Japan, in Italy, in Indonesia, volcanologists pass on stories. Histories of ash and adaptation. Towns rebuilt. Lives reshaped. The earth teaches. We respond. Even the global economy, vast and chaotic, has contingency threads woven through it now. Agricultural reserves, food sharing treaties, global communication channels that flicker awake in disaster. You see this not as fear-driven, but as deeply human, a woven net of compassion across borders. No plan is perfect, but the act of planning is beautiful in its intent. And what about you? What is your place in this dreaming system? You rest now, but you're part of it. Your awareness adds weight to our shared readiness. To wonder is to prepare. So you breathe with that thought. Not burdened, just aware. Like a sailor who respects the deep, knowing storms may come, but trusting the shape of their boat. You do not need to carry the earth. You only need to honor it. And in doing so, you are part of the balance. Part of the hush before an awakening. Part of the hope that if it comes, we will not face it alone. Outside your window, the sky is still. Stars wait above. The crust of the earth hums softly below. And everything between is simply breathing. You turn gently towards sleep, still curious. Because somewhere beneath this gentle world, the earth holds a breath it hasn't yet released. And you can't help but wonder. If the giant sleeps, how long until it dreams again? Chapter 10, The Long Sleep of Earth. Close your eyes. Let everything fall quiet around you. The thoughts in your mind slow, like the cooling of magma. The pulse in your wrist becomes a soft echo of something older, the rhythm of a planet in deep sleep. You are here, now, floating gently above a world that is older than memory. Beneath you, the earth rests, heavy, vast, unmoving, but not lifeless. Down below the layers of soil and stone, beneath the crust and the brittle plates, the molten heart of Earth continues its slow, silent motion. Not with the violence of eruption, not tonight, but with the long patience of a being that has seen ice ages come and go, that has felt the drift of continents like slow sighs in sleep. The supervolcano you once feared now feels like something different. Not a monster, but a breath. A slow inhalation of molten rock, a long-held pause. It waits, not in hunger, not in anger, just because that is what it does. You drift further downward now, past ancient layers pressed flat by time, past fossils of fern forests and bones of creatures that no longer roam, past seams of ash from eruptions long gone. All of it layered like the pages of a book, telling the Earth's story without a single word. You passed the scarred caldera of Yellowstone, a wound that healed itself into a meadow. You drift above the silent crater of Toba, now a lake where reflections ripple like time. And all along the way, the Earth murmurs its slow lullaby. Wait, rest, become. Your body breathes with it. Your chest rises like magma swelling gently in its chamber. Your lungs expand and fall, a slow tectonic rhythm of breath. You remember what you've learned, how the ground beneath us is never fully still, how heat pools in reservoirs miles below, building pressure so slowly that lifetimes can pass unnoticed. How the sky can darken not because of a storm, but because the earth remembers its strength. But not tonight. Tonight, you are witness to a stillness so vast, it feels holy. And in that stillness, you realize something. The earth's sleep is not the absence of action. It is the gathering of wisdom, of memory, of quiet potential. It is a pause, like a breath before a song, like a silence before dawn. You feel it now, how much the world holds beneath your feet, the pressure that never speaks, the heat that never complains, the power that never boasts, just silence and sleep. You imagine this sleep as a soft golden light moving under the crust, a river of warmth that never surfaces, a molten hum that cradles the bones of mountains. And in your own body, there is a mirror, the slow beat of your heart, the calm pulse in your throat, the way your thoughts have slowed into softness like falling ash. You and the earth are the same tonight. You are layers of memory, layers of heat, layers of rest. You are ancient movement held in a still moment. You do not need to fear the awakening, because the sleep itself is its own wonder. Let go of timelines. Let go of clocks. Let go of the need to know when or how or why. The earth has been waiting longer than any question. In this moment, you become time. You stretch across epochs. You do not count days. You feel them. You do not measure eruptions. You dream them. Sleep, too, is a kind of eruption, a letting go, of tension, of thought, of form. And just as magma finds its way through cracks in the crust, your breath finds its way through the stillness in your chest. Inhale, a quiet mountain rising. Exhale, an old volcano resting. Nothing stirs. Not now. The plates of the earth shift so gently, you'd never notice. But they do shift, and they always will. And so, perhaps, will you. But not yet. Not tonight. Tonight, the giant sleeps. And so do you, covered in silence, held in warmth, carried by the lullaby of slow creation. There is more stillness to explore, more ancient rhythms to understand. And as you drift down, gently, into sleep, you wonder, if the earth can hold such quiet power for millennia, what quiet, untapped strength might sleep within you? And now, the journey winds down. You've wandered through ancient chambers of fire. Listened to the hush beneath volcanoes that sleep for thousands of years. You've felt the slow patience of the earth, how it holds its breath beneath your feet, how silence can shape the sky. The danger feels distant now, softened by time, hushed by understanding. In this moment, all is still. The planet turns quietly. You are safe, grounded, gently drifting. As sleep settles in, remember, even the most powerful forces in nature spend most of their lives resting. Thank you for dreaming with us tonight. This has been Science for Sleep, where wonder never rushes and knowledge is as soft as a lullaby. Until next time, rest well and let curiosity wait for morning. Asterisk.